Thank you. Thought you meant Joan Collins dance.
Okay, we're on air, guys.
I'm sorry, what page are we?
I didn't say yet.
See, when you reach my age, you hear things that people don't say.
New year, new aftermath.
Okay, so let's start with anything. Avinu Malkeinu Eilanu Melech Eilanu Melech Avinu Malkeinu Eilanu Melech Eilanu Melech Elodah Ay 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 ladam ay ladam ay lay alay lay lay ay 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 ladam ay ladam iday day 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 day. For stomach cats or what?
Okay. Lindy.
No. Revaya, you know these two girls? No?
Yes, we've met, but I don't know. Hi, I'm Rebecca. Sweetie.
And Sarah just made Aliyah.
Oh, nice.
Risotto. I thought we met you. Oh, you were deciding.
So,
Good for you.
page 139.
We're going to start at 191.
191.
You messaged her, she's good with face. Yeah. Oh, you messaged her.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot of material to do, and we only have these two classes until today and tomorrow. Some of the things I'm going to try to share tomorrow orally, but we'll start with Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. It's always good to start with him. He's known as the great defender of Israel, always saw the good. So page 191, Reb Levi Yitzchak Mevarich Be'erev Yom Kippur. So Erev Yom Kippur, למרות שיש פה דווקא מצווה לאכול ולשתות, as you know, it's the mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. Because it's unusual, because the Torah says that you should ve'initem et nafshotechem, and you should cause suffering to your body, right, on the 10th of Tishrei, but then it also says that to do it on the 9th of Tishrei. So the Chachamim interpret not that you're supposed to, not that you should fast for 2 days, but rather that actually on the 9th of Tishrei, the eating is for the sake of fasting, on Yom Kippur. So the eating on the night of Tishrei is actually considered to be a mitzvah. The Baba Rebbe, the Reb Shlomo, always used to mention on the Erev Yom Kippur in his talk that his father, Reb Levi Yitzchak, his name was also Reb Levi Yitzchak. In fact, Chayil Esther's baby, Levi Yitzchak, is named after him. So he said that all year long he would eat only using one hand. He would never use both hands eating, except for Erev Yom Kippur. Somebody said about this. Erev Yom Kippur he ate with both hands because it's a mitzvah to eat. So he says, Reb Shlomo says, even though the eating on Yom Kippur is sort of like fasting, the eating on Erev Yom Kippur is sort of like fasting on Yom Kippur. Okay? Share a book, okay? Oh, it's a new you. Shalom Aleichem. And
How do you eat with two hands? You do that fork and a knife.
a fork and a knife, you use both hands. And all year long, he would only use only one hand.
When you use one hand, how did he cut his food with this fork?
With his teeth.
I'm asking you serious.
No, I'm not joking.
With the fork, and then you just bite it
Or
off.
somebody else maybe cut it for him or whatever, but he would only eat with one hand. So he says, despite the fact that it's a mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur, because it's sort of like Yom Kippur. Yesh mashu ba'avir kol kach kadosh, kol kach yaakov v'nizgab, kol kach tahor. There's something so holy in the air on Erev Yom Kippur, something so pure. Yesh anashim ha'osim kaparot b'shkitat ha'tarnagol. Right? Don't forget the custom of doing kaparot on Erev Yom Kippur. You don't have to wait till Erev Yom Kippur. So the widespread custom is to do it with slaughtering the chicken and giving it away to the poor. Other people give the equivalent amount of tzedakah to poor people. So try to give it early in the day so that they can actually use it on Erev Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, and something that's really, really important on Erev Yom Kippur is everybody goes to the mikveh, and Reb Shlomo was also encouraging women to go. If you need information about which mikvehs let unmarried women in, so call Judy. התפילה המטהרת היא דווקא במי גשמים, במים שלא נגע בהם יד אדם. Right, so a kosher mikveh is a mikveh that 40 sa'ah of the water have to be directly collected without any human intervention. Right, it's not like you can fill a tub. It has to be like rainwater or a mayan, and then you can add water to it. But with the 40 sa'ah has to be like direct,
What did you call it?
Sa'ah.
What is that?
It's a measure of water. I don't know the equivalent. So, ki atem yodim ma meir b'Yom Kippur. So you know what's shining on Yom Kippur? B'Yom Kippur meir ha'omek hachi amok shebenishmatenu. On Yom Kippur, the deepest depths of our neshama is illuminating. The depth of the neshama which has not been affected by anything that a human does. Ayin lo ra'ata elokim zulatecha, like the pasuk says, nobody saw it other than you. So you know what we're talking about. I think somebody might be able to go. Please check. Thank you. So you know that there are 5 levels to the neshama, right? What you're normally familiar with is the 3 lower levels, which are known as nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Nefesh is basically the part of your soul that animates the body. Ruach is the part of your soul that relates with emotions. And neshama is the level of soul which is related to consciousness. Then there's Chaya, which is sort of like the soul of the soul, okay, like the meta soul, so to speak. And then there's Yechida, which is the part of the neshama, which is constantly in union with Hashem. When you say in the morning in the davening, you say Elokai neshama shenatata bi tohavahi, the soul that you've given me is pure. How could I say that my soul is pure if I've done certain things that are not so ayayay? Right? Because there's a part of the neshama that is always in union with Hashem, and that part of the neshama is never affected by what you do. Now, the important point of that is that that's what allows us to do complete tshuva. In other words, because there's a part that always retaining its purity, therefore you can go back to your truest, deepest essence. Now, it says that on Yom Kippur, this part of the neshama is also, you can get in touch with it. It's also, so to speak, active down here, and in fact, it's particularly during the Ne'ilah prayer. Ravaya was here when I told the story about the suspenders yesterday, right? And I'm not going to repeat it now, but this is a great story. In any case, it's so most of us, we just speak about these things, about this, having this experience of being in touch with these higher levels of neshama. But there are people that actually can have the experience. You understand? For me, it's enough to know that's what our tzaddikim, that's what our rabbis say, that this is what's happening. Okay? So, but there is a certain the fact that everybody's like once this black taxi driver says to Shlomo, he says, you guys are crazy. And so he says, why? He says, because I got this customer that she has me take her to the synagogue for the blowing of the shofar, and then 10 minutes later she has me take her to the hairdresser. What's going on? Now, Shlomo says a beautiful thing. He says, in this world, there are Yidden that come to shul just once a year or 3 times a year, and when Max walks into shul and everybody turns around and looks at Max and they say, oh, Max is here for his annual visit, right? He says, but that's in this world. In Shemayim, when Max walks into shul, all the angels go, shh, Max came home, let's hear what he's got to say. It's a different way of looking, right? It's like a Rabbi Levi Yitzchak way of looking at it. It's a B'dishiva way of looking at it. And the danger of looking down at somebody else is huge. Rav Steinzal says that's one of the 2 avot nezikin, one of the 2 major reasons that we don't do complete tshuva is because we have this tendency to look down at somebody else. We look down at somebody else and we say, oh, okay, I'm better than him. I came to shul 4 times a year, right? It's all too easy to get into that trap of thinking that I'm okay because I'm better than somebody else. So what are you supposed to do when you see somebody that's not keeping Yiddishkeit as they should? And you got to do something positive about it. It means if Hashem is allowing you to see somebody not keeping Shabbos, as Hashem is saying, you better keep Shabbos better. You better do something better. You better do something to go out and educate this Jew. Don't just look down on him.
by example.
Whatever it is that you might need to be doing, like I'm reading Telushkin's biography on the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and so last night I was reading about like the first year that when he finally agreed to become Rebbe and his very first Farbrengen, he basically made it clear. You can see it on YouTube. He at least the recording. You can make it. He made it clear that Lubavitch was out to educate every Jew possible. Like you can see that his plan for having all those Chabad houses all across the world that they have now, this was his plan right from the very start. Because it's like the Chabad rabbi in Rehovot, Mendel Glukovsky. Remember Glukovsky? Remember Moshe Glukovsky from Toronto?
He was my son's teacher.
Yeah, so his son is the head of the Bezdin, the Chabad Bezdin in Rehovot. So he told the story once that he had come to visit Eretz Yisrael before he moved here, and he's a very talented, gifted young man, and he went around and he visited all the various Lubavitcher institutions, and he wrote a 32-page report on everything that he saw, what he thinks that needs to be improved, and this and that. And when he went back to New York, he handed it in to the Rebbe's office, and he was going to be there just for 2 weeks or so, and every day he's waiting to get an answer from the Rebbe. Anyway, finally, there's no answer coming. Finally, he's actually already in the car to go back to the airport. And his brother shouts down from the window from the second floor, they just called from 770, there's an answer. So he's on the way to the airport, he stopped, and they hand him back his 32-page letter. And at the end of the letter, there was a one-word answer, and the word was, no. In other words, so what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You know, and this is this is the shita, and you see something is wrong, then how come you got to see that? It's because you have to do something about it. Now, for each person, that what it is you have to do about it could be very well different. Understand? But definitely, you have to do something positive about it. Otherwise, it would be like, like what Hashem is speaking Lashon Hara and saying, hey, Revaya, have a look at this person, look at what they're doing in its Shabbos today. Hashem's not interested in speaking Lashon Hara and wanting to let you know that somebody's doing something wrong. If Hashem allows you, if you believe in Hashgacha Pratit, in divine providence, then it was by divine providence that you saw this. And it means that Hashem is saying, like according to the Baal Shem Tov, Hashem is saying two things. He's saying, one, you've got the same problem, maybe 100 different shades away from it. It might, in other words, if you, like the Baal Shem Tov says, if you see somebody being Mechal Shabbos, it doesn't mean that you're doing Malacha on Shabbos, but it could be that you shamed the Talmud Chacham, who's also in the aspect of Shabbos. Understand? It could be like many shades away from what you're actually seeing, but you've got the same problem on some level. And secondly, Hashem is saying, you have to do something about it. What? I said, that's a good question, but something you have to do. Shana Tova. Could we share a book here? Yeah? Okay. So, page 192. מכאן אני חייב לספר לכם על רבי לוי יצחק בערב יום כיפור. I have to tell you so about רבי לוי יצחק on ערב יום כיפור. גם אצל רבי לוי יצחק בברדיצ'ב, ערב יום כיפור היה יום מיוחד מאוד. It was a very special day. הוא קבע מנהג שכל יהודי צריך לבוא אליו עם רובל אחד לצדקה והוא יברך אותו. Strange, it seems strange to us, but he made a custom in his town that every Jew has to come and bring a ruble for tzedakah, and he would get a blessing. By the way, Berdichev, I heard recently that Berdichev was a city that was very, very much a city of the masculine, the Jewish intelligentsia that was against continued religious practice. And in fact, apparently one of the reasons that he chose to live in Berdichev was particularly because of the opposition. And they actually made a play mocking him. There was a theater show mocking him. The story is that one Yid came to Berdichev and he went to see the play, and he thought it was hilarious. And then he was told the character that this play is all about lives here in Berdichev. So he says, "Oh, I'll go see him," and he became a Baal Tshuva.
Recently, I found out that my ancestors are from Berdichev.
Yeah. People have who have the family name the Barrington are descendants of his. I know one descendant of his too. Okay, so like remember the story that the night of Slichus, he's walking to shul like late at night with his gabbai and it's pouring rain, so they went under a little awning of this abandoned house and just to wait out the rain a little bit. In the meantime, they hear some kind of party going on inside the house. So he sends his gabbai to see what's going on. His gabbai comes back and he says, "It's all the thieves of Berdichev. They're having the party." And he says, "So what are they doing?" He says, "Everybody's showing off how much they stole this year." This one says, I did this job. The other one says, that's nothing. I did a bigger one." And the Berdichev says, "Wow, even the thieves are already doing their confession and I haven't even started yet." Right? So it's so important how you're looking at people. So Erev Yom Kippur Echad, we're in the fifth line. Kvar Meuchad, it was already late. Od Mat Kol Nidrei, the people, shuls was going to be starting Kol Nidrei, but Levi Yitzchak Adayin lo halech lebeit hakneset, but he's still not in shul. Hu kanireh mechakeh lemishu, he's waiting for somebody, obviously. Levasof nichneset elav isha aniya ma'od. Finally, this very poor woman comes in. V'omeret lo Rebbe, hinei habeitu lecha rubel. Here, Rebbe, I brought you a rubel. Bevakasha tevarech oti. Please give me a blessing. Surely, of course, I'm blessing you. So the woman says to him, Rebbe, yesh li yeled, I have a child. Tevarech gam oto. Please give him a blessing as well. אבל אני מאוד ענייה ואין לי עוד רובל לתת לך בשביל בני. I don't have any more money to give you another ruble for my son. אומר לה רבי לוי יצחק, שרבי יצחק says to her, אני מצטער. I'm sorry. אני לא יכול לברך את הילד שלך, I can't give your son a blessing. את יודעת את התעריף שלי, you know the price. רובל אחד לכל, רובל לכל אחד. Each person has to pay a ruble. האישה מתחילה להתווכח איתו, she starts arguing with him, אבל רבי לוי יצחק בשלו, he's sticking with his opinion. לבסוף היא אומרת, finally, she says, בסדר, she says, okay, אל תברך אותי, don't bless me, תברך רק את הילד שלי, just bless my child. לשמה הדברים האלה, נוהרים פניו של רבי לוי יצחק. As soon as Rabbi Levi Yitzchak heard these words from her, his face was shining and beaming. מיד הוא רץ לבית הכנסת, he ran to shul right away, פותח את ארון הקודש, opened up the holy ark, ואומר, שמעת ריבונו של עולם? Master of the world, did you hear מה אמרה אותה אישה, what this woman said? היא אמרה, אל תברך אותי, רק תברך את הילד שלי. She said, don't bless me, just bless my child. למה שגם אתה ריבונו של עולם לא תאמר כך על בניך? Why, Master of the world, why don't you say the same for your children? Right? Nora v'ayom. So this is awesome. In other words, obviously the whole story was that Reb Levi Yitzchak was waiting for somebody to say that. Right? In other words, he's saying, Rebbeinu Shalom, okay, whatever we've done. So maybe just stop caring about yourself so much and care about your children. Right? Now, it's sort of, it's holy chutzpah, right? That it's not as if Hashem is not caring about his children, right? But he's saying, look at you, look at this woman. She's suffering so much, and she's willing to give up her own blessings so that her child should have a blessing, right? Okay, so Hashem, your Shekhinah is in Golos, but your children need a blessing. So, so Reb Shlomo continues and he says, Yesh meyot sipurim kaele, there's hundreds of stories of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak ve'erev Yom Kippurim. There's lots of stories about that happened on Erev Yom Kippur with him. Atem mevinim Rabbi Levi Yitzchak hayam mechakeh shemishu yisapek lo tiyun mul HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right, he was waiting for someone to give him an argument to God. V'nei sipur nosaf, and here's another story. Erev Yom Kippur Meuchav, late one Erev Yom Kippur, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak lo magia lebeit hakneset, v'kulam ba'im elav v'menasim litzchok bo, everyone's coming trying to rush him, Rabbi Meuchav, aval hu doche otam, but he's pushing them off. V'shuv magia isha im rubel biyad v'omeret, Rabbi tevarech oti sheba'ali yachzor elai. A woman comes with a ruble, she says, bless me that my husband should come back to me. Hu barach me'abayit, he left us, ולא יודעת איפה הוא, and don't know where he is. שואל אותה רבי לוי יצחק, מדוע הוא ברח? So he asks her, why did he leave you? עונה האישה, הוא טוען שנהייתי מכוערת. The woman says that my husband says I've become ugly, והוא לא יכול לחיות איתי, and he can't live with me. אמר לה רבי לוי יצחק, ומה את משיבה על כך? So what answer do you have to that? אומרת האישה, so the woman said, Nachon shenaseti mecha'eret. Yeah, it's true that I've become pretty ugly. It's okay, and it's painful. But nevertheless, how could he forget how beautiful I was when I was standing next to him under the chuppah? At that moment, he couldn't control himself anymore. He rushed to the Beit HaMidrash, he went to the shul, Pateach et Aron HaKodesh, Matchil Livkot, opened up the Holy Ark, and he began to cry, Ribono shel olam. Nachon she'anachnu kvar lo kol kach yafim. It's true, God, that we're not so beautiful anymore. Aval ech ata yachol lishkoach kama yafim hayinu kishe'amadnu al Har Sinai. How can you forget how beautiful we were when we stood at Har Sinai? Nora ve'ayom mamash. It's awesome, right? So this is this story is very, very much related to Reb Nachman's teaching about looking at the Nekudat Tova. Right? Are you familiar with Azamra, with Reb Nachman's Azamra? Were you in Oman, by the way? No. So Reb Nachman's most famous teaching in the Kutei Moharan is known by the name Azamra. It's teaching 282, Reish Pei Bet. And there Reb Nachman speaks about, and in Yom Hashem we're going to be learning it once we start the program after Sukkot. Reb Nachman speaks about the whole thing about looking at the Nekudat Tovat, right? When you're looking at another person, and he starts with the Mishnah, he says, Vida, know that you have to judge every person with kaf zchut, right? Now kaf, this is the kaf of my hand, right? The old scales, right, they had a kaf chova and a kaf zchut, right? You've seen the pictures of the old scales, 2 dishes, right? You still can find some maybe in the Sharim. But in any case, there's the dish that you put the merits in, and there's the dish that you put the negatives into it, right?
The symbol for law.
It's a symbol for law, right? So the Mishnah says that you should always judge somebody favorably. Havei dan et kol ha'adam lekaf zchut. Now, basically, the pshat means that when you see somebody doing something that's not so ay, instead of being down on them, try to find some kind of a merit to make it easier or to justify them, right? You see the kid sitting on the bus and there's an elderly person standing nearby and the kid's not giving his seat. Instead of saying the kid is a rotten kid, maybe the kid has a very bad stomach ache. Maybe the kid gets dizzy when he stands on the bus. Who knows what? But don't, in other words, look for some kind of a way to excuse, to put the kid in kapschut. Reb Nachman teaches something very radical. He says that whichever way you're looking at, whatever it is that you're looking at in the other person, if you're looking at their positive, you are literally putting them into the kapschut. You're putting them into a positive space. If you're focusing on something negative in that person, you're putting the person into a negative space. Okay? Now, and I remember the very first night that I ever learned that, and as I was learning it, I was thinking to myself, what is this, some kind of magic that you've got a remote control in your eyes, that you have this power in your eyes, that you're looking at something positive in the person, you're putting them into a positive space, something negative. And the very next day, I had an experience where I saw that it was absolutely true. It's literally true. Reb Nachman goes on and emphasizes that this is also true for your own self. If you think about something, if you're focusing on something negative about yourself, you're putting yourself into a negative space and you're making it harder for yourself to crawl out of that. If you focus on something positive, you're putting yourself into a positive space, and from there, you can do tshuva. And he goes on and he says, and even if you see somebody who's like a really corrupt person, president of the local mafia or whatever it is, still find something good in this person, even though it might be that it's 50 years since they did that one good thing. And even if that one good thing that they did is full of blemishes, but there's still there has to be one little nekuda tova, and you focus on that. And it's the same for your own self. Okay? So this is what the story is over here. Like the woman saying, how could it be my husband doesn't remember how beautiful I was when we got married? Right? And Levi Yisrael runs to the shul and he says, okay, Rebbeinu Shalom, so we're ugly today, maybe. Right? But focus on how beautiful we were at Har Sinai. Okay? Fine, we've still got a very, very positive point about us. Okay? So don't forget that when Reb Levi Yitzchak was living, there was a lot of pogroms were going on, anti-Semitism was rampant, and Jews were literally suffering a lot. So he's mamish pleading on our behalf. He's got the guts to plead very forcefully with Hashem, right? And that's an important lesson to know, that that what do you call it? That when you hear when somebody says that they're suffering for one reason or another, don't be God's lawyer. Hashem doesn't need you to be his lawyer to defend him. Defend this person. Right? Find some reason that you could say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, okay, maybe he did this, maybe he did that, whatever it is, but still, he's done something good. Let's focus on that. a person's always supposed to say that kol ma David ma, that whatever the master is doing, it's l'tav avid, it's for the good. That's something that you got to say for your own self. Don't, there's like there's a saying in Yiddish, as a heiser yid, a heist yanim. But we won't bother translating that. But there's a lot of people that are firm on other people's backs, so to speak, right? And don't be firm on somebody else's back. But the Yetzer Hara is enormous in that. The Yetzer Hara to walk around and thinking that I'm better than somebody else is a huge Yetzer Hara, because we like to think well about ourselves, but sometimes we know a little bit too much about ourselves. So how do you make yourself feel better? You look around and see somebody that's doing something that's wrong. So then you pat yourself on your back. Oh, I'm okay. So, okay. So let's see page 194. Okay. Yehudim shel Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur Jews, you've heard of them, right? You come to Shul just on Yom Kippur. בבית הכנסת שלי במנהטן, בכל בתי הכנסת בעולם, ישנם יהודים שמגיעים רק ביום כיפור, לצערי. There are Jews that come to Shul just on Yom Kippur. Unfortunately, that they're coming only on Yom Kippur. אבל אני תמיד אומר לבני קהילתי, but I always tell the people in my shul, אתם בטח חושבים שאנחנו המתפללים קבוע בבית הכנסת, אנחנו העיקר, בעלי הבית. You surely think that we who come every week, we're the balabatim here. We're the mainstay of this congregation, right? ואלה שמגיעים רק ביום כיפור, תפלים, and those that come just on Yom Kippur, they're just like an appendix. רק אורחים, they're just guests, right? אבל דעו לכם שאתם טועים. Know that you're making a mistake. הקדוש ברוך הוא מחכה ליהודים האלה כל השנה. Hashem is waiting for these people all year long. הם אלה שעושים את יום כיפור קודש הקדושים. They're the ones that make Yom Kippur the holy of holies. כשרואים בשמיים יהודי רחוק שחוזר לבית הכנסת ביום כיפור, גוואלד איזו שמחה יש שם. When they see in heaven that there's a Yid who hasn't been in shul all year long and he comes on Yom Kippur, they're so happy that Max is showing up, כך גם בין ההורים וילדים. Same with parents and children. כמובן שהם שמחים בילדים שהם רואים בכל יום. Of course you're happy with your children that you see every day. אבל ילד שמגיע הביתה פעם בשנה, but a kid who comes only once a year, כשהם רואים אותו, הלב שלהם מתפוצץ משמחה. When the parents see them, they're extremely happy, right? So he's not saying that stay away from shul the rest of the year. He's just saying that don't look down at the person who only comes on Yom Kippur. What?
The word
Mitpotzets? Exploding.
Slowly.
Exploding. Tzatzah is an explosion, right?
Fireworks. No.
No, that's the cooking. Ezekim. Huh?
Tzatzah is a bomb.
A bomb, but it's.
And the pitzut is the
Pitzut is the action, right? Tzatzah is the noun. Okay. Yeah. Bursting. Okay. So, Tfilat Leil Yom Kippurim. So everybody knows that Yom Kippur begins with Kol Nidrei, right? Hayom HaKadosh v'Mekudash Memashmesh Uba, the holy day is approaching. Kulam Bayim B'Beit HaKnesset U'Mevakshim Slicha Zeh Mizeh. Everybody comes to shul and everybody's walking around and asking one another for forgiveness, right? Which is very important. Then after you finish saying Slicha to everyone, then you ask Hashem for forgiveness as well. ומוציאים את ספרי התורה מארון הקודש, we take all the ספרי Torah out of the Aron Kodesh, not all actually, ומקיפים בהם את הבימה, we walk around the bima, וכל אחד ניגש ומנשק את הספר, everybody approaches, kisses the Sefer Torah, מבקש סליחה מהתורה, and asks for the Torah to forgive us, בבקשת תורה הקדושה, Holy Torah, please, תסלחי לנו שלא קיימנו את מה שכתוב בך, please forgive us that we haven't fulfilled what's written in here, what's written in the Torah. This last sentence, pay attention to it. Please forgive us that we didn't dip in every word and in every letter of the Torah. That's, in other words, like the word tefillah is like going to a mikveh, right? Forgive us that we didn't immerse ourselves completely in every word and every letter of the Torah. אתם יודעים, ידידים, בשנה שעברה הבטחתם לקודש בריך הוא כל כך הרבה וקיימנו כל כך מעט. We promised God so much last year and we fulfilled so little. כך פגענו בדימוי העצמי שלנו. Now the deepest problem with that is that by not fulfilling what we promise, we're damaging our self-image. Right? והשנה אנחנו כבר לא כל כך בוטחים בעצמנו. This is a teaching that Reb Shlomo very often would speak about, based on Rabbi Nachman, right? The idea that every time that I make a mistake, every time that I do something that's not right, I lose another bit of my self-confidence, right? Like, there's a sefer from the p.1 called B'nai Machshava Tovah, which is a guidebook. The p.1 was into meditation, and he taught his students, to meditate. And he had an advanced group of advanced students that he formed a group called B'nai Machshava Tovah. And in that little, it's like more like a handbook. And at the beginning, he says, there's a number of conditions that you have to meet in order to read this sefer. One of them is you have to have integrity. If you say that you're going to do something, if you say that you're going to, if you commit yourself to something, and by the next morning you don't even remember that you actually did that you actually said that, he says, don't read the sefer. Why? Because the way I understand it, maybe this is not the only reason, maybe it's not the reason, but the way I understand it is that when you learn these high things, these deep teachings, and you don't do anything about it, it's like you're feeding the other side. See, because now the Yetzer Hara side says, you see, you even learned the most beautiful of teachings, and it didn't make any difference to you, right? So, in a certain sense, you're ruining your sensitivity to something which is holy, right? So the problem of saying that now I'm going to do this or now I'm going to do that, and then not keeping it, for sure, if you don't say B'li Neder, right, you're ruining your own self-esteem, because who are you after all? What makes you as a human being special? It's the power of speech. It's the power of speech that makes you unique in all the creation. Okay? And the Targum Onkelos and the verse, Vayipach Ba'atav Ruach Nishmat Chayim, that God breathed the soul of life into Adam's nostrils. So the Targum Onkelos says, Ruach Mimalala, God breathed the soul of speech into man. God gave man the ability to speak. So, we call the Hebrew language, we call it the Lashon HaKodesh, simply because it's the language of the Torah. But another cute interpretation is that so that you should know that Lashon, speech, is Kodesh, is holy. And 1 second. And I'm sure that I'm not saying this to anybody present right now, but know that if you guard the way you speak, that's one of the most powerful things in growing in a positive way. Because the words that you hear on the radio nowadays are in the music industry and so on, those words they're mamish treif, don't use those words for your own benefit, not because it's not polite, but it's just it's an offense to your own self to use such language.
You said something before, with Malala.
Ruach Memalala.
Malala. It's interesting because Malala is speech.
Milah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. The Targum Onkelos and Ruach Nishmat Chayim, he translates it as Ruach Memalala.
But it also sounds like from above.
No, ayin. It's just mem from the word milah. Okay?
On what you have just said, be careful with what you say. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this correctly. Does one remain silent, or like one nodding and then hello, whatever? Is there a time when one, I'm not talking about the regular, when one can talk or should talk, or does one remain silent?
Listen, there are those who have this spiritual practice of not talking anything other than divrei Torah or was absolutely necessary. There are people who have that. No, but you're allowed to talk. But you have to be careful. Words are precious. I think the Chofetz Chaim said something like, every person is given a certain amount of time in life, a certain amount of words that they're going to be speaking. Sometimes said it also. So use your bank of words in the best way. Stan Redden, you heard the story about these two ladies were in prison in Russia. In the same cell, and so for 30 years they were talking to each other. They finally released, and somebody's walking outside, and you see them sitting on a park bench talking to each other. He says, they were just released. So the guy says, wait a minute, you were talking to each other for 30 years. Why don't you each go your way right now? She says, I forgot to tell her something. We all have this problem, people who don't waste time, we call them workaholics, right? But there are people who actually don't waste time. Believe it or not. There are people who don't waste time.
Wasn't there a famous rabbi who kept a book, and every time he wasted time, he wrote it down?
They very well may have been, I don't know, but there is a story that's brought in Sipurei Hasidim We mentioned Kaparot before. So this Rebbe sent one of his Chassidim, the Chassid asked him, Rebbe, how do I do Kaparot? So he says, go to a certain village, find the innkeeper there, and stay there for a couple of days and pay attention to him. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but like the back in those days, the Poritz used to give the inns, used to rent out the inns to Jewish people, because the inn was basically like the local bar as well. And they always like to have a Jew around that when the peasants would get angry at him, so he would deflect it onto the Yid, right? In any case, so this Yid is the night before Yom Kippur, and he takes out his notebook and he starts to read off all the things that he did wrong during the year. And he says, Rebbeinu Shalom, like, I'm sorry for all this. Then he takes out another notebook and he says, Rebbeinu Shalom, I prayed for Parnassah, we're barely surviving. I have children to marry off, I'm not able to marry them off. My wife got sick, I got sick, and he lists all the things that went wrong that year. And then he says, you know what, Hashem, you forgive me and I forgive you. And he ties the two notebooks together and he goes, Ze kaparati, ze chalifati, ze tmurati. And he says, I forgive you, God, and you forgive me, and he throws it into the fireplace. What's the point of the story? The point of the story is that whatever way you're going to do kaparot, try to make it real, Try to make it real. Okay. So he says that, so where are we? So Yom Kippur is coming, right? We're asking everybody to forgive us. We're asking the Torah to forgive us. And the fact is, like you go over to a 15-year-old and a 20-year-old and you say, so do you think that this year you're going to be better than last year? And the kid is going to say, yeah, I really hope so. I really believe it, right? Go over to somebody who's an AK outer, and I don't mean by age, but no. Right. And in other words, somebody who's already in an old mindset. Reb Shlomo once said at a concert, he says, everybody who's young, get up and dance. And he said, the Gemara says, a young person is defined as being somebody who thinks that tomorrow will be better. Okay? So you go over to an older person and you say, okay, so you've been promising for the last 25 years you're going to do this and this and this, and you're saying it again this year. Do you believe that you're going to change this year? Right? To people when they're already in an old mindset, they don't really believe it anymore. Okay? So and why? Because every time that you make a commitment and that you don't keep it, you're losing confidence and respect for yourself. You're losing self-esteem. So better, like, you're not sure about something, say, I'd like to do this, I'm going to try later, or something like that. But, otherwise, we get into the habit of saying things and we know to begin with that we don't mean it. So he says, Va'az Hatfilah, page 196. And then we start with the davening. תפילת ליל יום הכיפורים היא ללא ספק אחת התפילות הגבוהות ביותר בכל השנה. Obviously, the davening on Yom Kippur night must be one of the highest of all year long. איזה יום, דעו לכם ידידים, דווקא ביום כיפור מוכרחים להתפלל עם המון שמחה ושירה. So he says you should know that דווקא on Yom Kippur, you have to daven with a lot of joy and a lot of singing. אצל כמה רבאים היו אפילו רוקדים בליל יום כיפורים. And there were some rabbis that they used to dance on Yom Kippur. Right? So I'll end up with a quick story. When Reb Leibel Eger became a chassid by the Kosker. Reb Leibel Eger was a grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eger. His father was Reb Shlomo Eger. And so from a family of Misnagdim. So he came to Kosk, and it was time to initiate him. So it's Yom Kippur night, davening is over. Some Kosker Hasidim are already lying on the benches sleeping. And he's sitting there, he's 18 years old, and he's learning. In walks a Kosker Chosid with a bottle of wine and a cup, kicks his friend on the bench who's sleeping. He says, Matel, did you make Kiddush yet? Matel says, leave me alone. Matel, it's Yom Kippur night, the holiest night of the year. We got to make Kiddush. Okay. Come on, Matel, let's do it fast. And the label is like looking at this, like, what's going on? So he says, okay, let's do it fast. So he pours him the cup of wine, picks it up, Sabrima run on, and Reb Leibel screams, stop! And they turn around and they say, what do you want? He says, stop, you're not allowed to do this. It's Yom Kippur. Who says? It says in Shulchan Aruch. Leave us alone, come on. Mazel Kiddush, let's go. Sabrima run on, Baruch Ato, and he screams, stop! What do you want? You're not allowed to do this. Who says? It says in the Torah. Get out of here, kid. Come on, Matel, let's go, Kiddush. So Riva Ranan Baruch Ato, and he screams again, stop! They say, what do you want? He says, you're not allowed to do it. Who said? He says, God said. Oh, God said. Okay, they put it down. That's how he was initiated. Understand, in Kotsk, it wasn't enough that it says in the Shulchan Aruch, it says in the Torah. You got to know Hashem said. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to learn about, at least a little bit, about the Seir Lazazel. You know, what do they call it? The goat that they sent over the cliff, you know?
On this boat?
Yeah.
What about Sukkot? Do you have classes?
Tomorrow we have the last class. Tonight Shlomo Kens is here at 7:30, Mr. Shem. Tomorrow afternoon at 5:30, Rebbe Silver is going to be teaching about Yom Kippur. Okay? And she's a very good teacher. We really got to promote her. And Kol Tov.
That's interesting you said that we were having someone and we were breaking Shabbat. I just spent Shabbat with